work, or mine, see now, but I generally leave it off.
To that meeting.
Wow, looks like we don't have a full house tonight out there, thank God.
Oh, no problem.
You know, the city council meeting is gonna be pretty hairy tomorrow over that fire department.
Good evening. I would like to call the April 2024 Redondo Beach Public Safety Commission to order. Officer Lostrom, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Carmichael?
Present.
Commissioner Gupta is absent. Chair Gall?
Here.
Commissioner Kleinbaum?
Here.
Commissioner Escontrias?
Here.
And Commissioner Skiba.
Here.
Roll call is complete.
Great. All right, let's salute the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can I get an approval for the order of agenda?
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Skiba, second by Commissioner Carmichael to approve the order of agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nays? So moved. You can proceed, Chair.
Great. How about the blue folder items? I don't think we're doing anything with the previous meeting until May,
Correct.
so I think we're good without any blue folder items.
Correct.
Cool. We'll move on to the consent calendar, which reads, business items except those formally noticed for public hearing or discussion are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that any consent calendar items be removed, discussed, and acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion following oral communications. Is there anything exclusive that we need to parcel out or anything like that?
Just the affidavit of posting and the prior meeting minutes. And you can make a motion to approve both.
May I hear a motion to approve F1 and F2 affidavit and approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Skiba, second by Carmichael. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? So moved.
Great.
And you can proceed.
Thank you. Excluded consent calendar items. I don't think there's anything excluded, so we go to H, which is public participation on non-agenda items. Is that correct?
Correct? None under this segment. You can proceed to H1.
Yep. let's do that. Any comments or emails received from the public?
There's one e-comment on H1 from a Sandra Segal, Sondrasegall, states, please urge the city council to vote against sending RBFD to LA County. Moving to county would mean higher costs, lower staffing levels, losing our class 1 rating, and irrevocably sending our equipment and personnel to a giant bureaucracy from which we could never afford to buy back. And for what? It doesn't save money. It costs more for less service. It doesn't ameliorate our long-term pension obligations. Short-term, our paramedics would be spread thinly over many cities which don't have enough paramedic service today. Long-term is even scarier when, not if, but when we have a major earthquake or other disaster, Redondo Beach will be at the bottom of the priority list for service from a county focused on its airports, seaports, and skyscrapers. No additional e-comments under H1.
And we can't comment or discuss this e-comment. We just need to process it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Cool.
And you can proceed.
Great. Do we have any items from previous agendas?
On today's agenda, negative.
Nope. But we will continue the discussion that we had in March with South Redondo, PV Boulevard, and Prospect, it looks like in May. So that will be next month, probably with, who knows? Might be just us, might be with a live studio audience. So let's go to items for discussion prior to action. So we have our city manager here, Mike Witzansky.
Do you know how to work the dais there, sir? Okay.
Welcome, Mike.
Hi, welcome. Good evening, everybody.
Oh, that's
Pleasure to be
cool.
here.
Yeah, I forgot about
Thanks.
that.
Yeah, we can turn this thing all the way up here. Thanks for your service. Thanks for your volunteerism and helping us with this commission. It's a pleasure to be in front of you. This is the time of year when we begin preparing our proposed budget to the mayor and council. I deliver that each year at the middle of May. In April, I like to get in front of the commissions and not give you a presentation on what the specifics in the budget will be, but to actually listen and hear from you as to what you think we should be considering as we prepare the document. So no formal presentation tonight planned, just an opportunity to have a dialogue, ask any questions you might have, and really provide any insight that you'd like us to consider as we get the document ready in May. So I'm here as long as you need me, and I can answer whatever questions you might have. Yes, sir.
I have one. Is it possible to consider reallocating the city resources to provide for more officers on patrol?
So that would entail kind of a police department reorganization. Right now, we have a number of different units, from our quality of life unit to our special operations bureau to detectives to traffic enforcement, et cetera. The largest portion of the department is dedicated to patrol. And we feel like we're fairly well staffed in that area. We have done some restructuring and rescheduling of patrol functions in the last year that's allowed us to expand coverage at peak times to a degree. But appreciate the sentiment, and I can certainly talk that over with the chief and we can kick that around. But I feel like we're pretty well staffed right now for the community's concerns. Most of our focus of late has been traffic issues or general quality of life concerns from residents and the enforcement of our municipal code. We're fortunate in Redondo Beach to be focused on things like that. You know, dogs off leash on the pier, leaf blower, citations. We spend a lot of time on that. A lot of other cities don't. That it's not really a point of emphasis, but for our community, it's important. And that's where a lot of our recent efforts have been addressed and focused. Appreciate the comment, though.
Yeah, to what you just said, that you said that the city is putting a lot of emphasis on dogs and running free or whatever else, and on the pier and whichever else. Is that because of, do you have anything to back that up with other than the fact of somebody told you that?
Yeah, we've had, in the last 2 years, we've had over 1,000 citations for what we would call municipal code violations. pertaining to open containers on the pier,
Right,
dogs off leash, around the pier, leaf blower sites. We've had over 300 leaf blower sites over the last 2 years. So when you run the data just empirically, big change from where you were the prior 2-year period. If you look at the 2021 calendar years versus the 22-23 calendar years, it's about 5 times the number of citations with regards to those types of code violations. So we've added staff, we've added municipal services officers, we've added code enforcement officers. Not all of that work is being performed by our police officers.
I understand that, but,
Yeah.
but you indicate that you've added,
Yeah.
okay, and I believe that the addition of the municipal officers are the part-timers.
A couple of full-timers and a couple of part-timers, both in the MSO category as well as code enforcement.
Because what I'm getting, the information I'm getting, and what I'm actually seeing, is that there's a lack of municipal officers within the parks. And in fact, I believe that the Parks Commission as well has indicated that they're also looking in kind of having a discussion because of the lack of municipal officers in the area, that they're actually looking possibly of adding a park ranger. Okay. I do understand the fact of the municipal officers who've indicated that because of the clause in their job description is, at the very end of it says, as needed by the chief of police, that somehow they're being pulled from those animal services to be crossing guards or to be picking up evidence or do other things for that as well. I'm just saying is that I understand that the numbers may put out 1,000 more statistically, okay? But I think the thing is, especially the community that I'm talking to or talking with or whatever, okay, is that they're not seeing that.
You'd like to see, so what I'm gathering is you'd like to see maybe more of that effort in parks in particular?
You just kind of indicated, sir, with all due respect, is that our police force is at a sufficient level. You indicated that.
Well, I think our police force, given our resources in the city, is at a well-funded level. Clearly, you could always add more, right? We could always add more officers.
Right.
We could always add more enforcement personnel, whatever it might be. We've certainly added to the department's resources over the last several years, no question.
When we say resources, are we referring to equipment or are we referring to officers?
Both staff,
officer- no, okay.
equipment, yes.
I'm referring to officers.
Technology, yeah.
Officers or detectives, I'm not talking about a secretary or a municipal officer.
Right, so we've added 2 sworn personnel
Okay.
that are on the officer level. We've added, we currently have a 4th overhire captain position that's been added. We added an additional lieutenant in the
Both
last couple
administrative-
of years.
both administrative
We've
positions.
added an additional sergeant to the department over the last few years dedicated to quality of life supervision. So we've added a lot of sworn resources to the department. Now, if you're referring to just patrol officers or detectives, that's different. We haven't grown necessarily in that specific allocation. But by and large, the department over the last few years has grown both from a staffing standpoint and a technological investment standpoint from a service and equipment.
But maybe no more than 5, you'd say?
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back and look at the budget over time. But yeah, we're at 98 sworn now. I feel like a few years ago, we were somewhere in the 92, 93 category. We had a few on the books that weren't filled. That's the other thing we've done a great job of. The team's been fantastic in our overhire program. We used to carry a volume of vacancies anywhere from 8 to 10 in the department. We now effectively prime the pump before we have the vacancy occur. We have folks on standby, ready to begin, whether it be training or go to the academy. And we've done a fantastic job making sure that we minimize the time that we have vacancies. So in terms of just personnel in the department, personnel on the books, they've grown categorically across the board. The notion of would we always like more? Sure. I mean, we would always like more. If we could identify more resources, we'd grow, I think, even further. But we have to balance that against all of the other cities'
But I also
needs.
would say that there's a balance not only between the number of officers, but the allocation of where they're being utilized.
That's
Again,
true.
you can have a whole bunch within patrol, but then you have detectives who are seriously lacking because they can't do their job or because there's too many of that, or specialized units that actually take away from the actual the backbone of the department.
It works both ways. You're absolutely right. And, if we have folks that are out on injury, that can deplete
Which you're down at,
resources
I
at
believe,
times.
76 officers now as opposed to the 98.
We're more than that right now, I think, in a deployment basis. Our IOD counts lower than it has been before. I'd say we probably have about a half a dozen right now. They're out on some kind of longer-term disability. I don't know exactly the count, but it's in that range. But it's a point of emphasis for us and will continue to be a point of emphasis.
You have a
I
question.
do.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Escontrias. Commissioner Carmichael, go ahead, sir.
City Manager, number one, appreciate you making time for us this evening. We know you got a lot on your plate, and we know that you're seeing a lot of different commissions. So we really
Busy month.
yes, we do appreciate your time. The nerd in me has read all of the budgets from 2015 to today. So a lot of what I'm hearing you saying, I sort of challenge is anecdotal. It's actually written down. So really appreciate you having access to it and giving it to us. But I just challenge the notion that some of the stuff that you're saying is anecdotal. It actually is written. I have two questions for you. One, I know that we're going to ask a lot of you. So how are you doing? Like just you in general. That's number one. And number two, when you think about your 5 priorities from a public safety lens for this next budget, what would they be? New fire station, what would those top 5? And it could be wish list, and it could be like what actually going to make it to the list, if you don't mind.
Well, appreciate that first question. I appreciate both questions. Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm proud of our police department. I'm proud of our fire department. I'm proud of all of our various operations. 2023 was a really good year for us by all counts. Pleased with the energy and in the organization, pleased with the new additions, people we've hired. And, it's not a great pun in light of what's going on in the world right now, but, hiring new public safety officers, public safety personnel across the board is really a bit of an arms race. We're in competition with our neighbors and other agencies all the time. And it's difficult. And it's, policing is arguably the hardest job in the city. And it requires incredible patience, resourcefulness, care, positive disposition. It's an incredibly challenging field and profession. And it's really imperative that we hire the best and the brightest out there. And I think we've done a good job doing that. So to answer your first question, I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah. Really, really proud of our organization. And that's not to say we don't have areas to improve. I can give you about 100 of them. So there's a lot of work to do. But overall, I'd say, pleased with what we've accomplished thus far. And if you gave me, top 5 things in the public safety world, love some more capital resource to improve our various facilities and stations, whether it be the main station across the street at the 200 building, the Detectives Bureau and all our operations over there. Love to see our fire stations improved, certainly with additional resources. I'd love to see significant capital resources available to us to execute projects like that. We have had to kind of take the Band-Aid and glue approach over the last 10 years because we've been really focused on making sure we have resources to fund staffing, and in particular, before we refinanced our bonds, to have resources to fund increased pension costs. And those were on a rocket ship 10 years ago. They continue to be on a rocket ship. Wow. And when we restructured and issued those bonds, we erased our unfunded accrued liability and actually froze that cost in time and avoided literally over $100 million of future city expense, right? It was a huge, huge project. And for us to get that done at the time we did was really unique in some instances, a little bit of luck. But we ultimately, for those who were following that, right, we paid 6.75% on what's called a discounted rate to PERS every year for our unfunded accrued liability, right? So you're basically think about it as a mortgage, right? You got a $220 million mortgage and you're being charged 6.75% on that mortgage every year. We were able to refinance that mortgage at 2.7%. That's how you save $100 million over 25, 30 years, right? So fortuitous timing, good planning, good credit rating. We bond market at the time was positive for us. So that allowed us finally to kind of stop the bleeding on pensions, was where I was going with that, and allow us to stop and think, okay, well, how do we spend our resources now, right? Part of what happened during that area is we had to freeze wages to a degree because it was just so expensive to cover pension costs, right? So we had to write that check. We didn't necessarily, although much to our association's chagrin at the time, we could only afford so much in terms of salary, right? So we were able to pivot on that a little bit now. We're able to kind of bring our groups back to market, be a little more competitive, particularly with police and fire. And we're much more competitive in the market now than we used to be. So that's been important to help us recruit and retain the best and the brightest. But we still don't have significant depth of capital resources to address our facility needs. You know, we're an old community, decades old stations. We're great with technology. We had technology all the time. So we make it work in our department, you know, in our various facilities. But in an ideal world, we'd have tens of millions of dollars to invest in our facilities. That would be, you know, if I had one wish, it would be access to lots of capital resource so we could really contemporize our buildings. And that would include the Civic Center. You know, we did a nice job with this building. This was a big priority. And we're doing it like you would a renovation at your house, right? We're doing it room at a time. So an office becomes vacant, Public Works comes in, pulls down the drywall, rips up the carpet, gets the baseboards going, gets it all, you know, cleans up the ceiling tile, redoes the lighting, and we turn it over. We hire somebody to come in, they've got a fresh space. But there's dozens of those offices, right, that still need to be turned over and cleaned up. We're renovating in place because that's what we can afford to do. If we had significant capital resources, we would be able to do something a little bit more grand than that. Probably address facility entrances, lobbies, jazz up our curb appeal, if you will, and, you know, really kind of enter the 21st century, so to speak, when it comes
20th in some cases.
Yeah, something. So yeah, that would be a big thing for us. And then, you know, we're always careful about sustainability and structural revenues versus expenditure. So love to see a little bit more increase in our sales tax growth around here. Love to see that so we can sustain future costs a little bit more reliably. You know, every year is a little bit of a hold your breath kind of, what are our structural revenues going to show versus our structural expenditures, particularly when we take on new labor contracts, which we've done this year with our civilian groups and the like. So yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a tight year, I think, just absorbing all those new costs. But so yeah, balanced budget, facility funds, a couple of things.
All right, I have one more question if that's
Go
okay.
ahead.
In this year's budget, or is it a practice that we could see things like your wish list in there somewhere, or a separate document?
You know what you'll
And by that I mean, like a new fire station would cost this much, because some of us have access to capital or access to legislators who have access to capital, in which case I'm happy to do some of that legwork to go, okay, but it's easier when I walk in with it costs this much versus having to.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure what I'm asking, but is there any way to
I think what you're getting at is it's a good line of thought. We have periodically what we'll do in the budget is we'll create what's called a budget response report where we'll talk about, hey, hypothetically, you know, it's really a Q&A, right? You ask a question. What would it cost to renovate, you know, police station, the annex, fire stations 1 and 2, and, you know, City Hall, right? Not reconstruct, you know, we're not getting crazy with, you know, $1 billion, but what would it cost to renovate those facilities, you know, in a meaningful way? And actually that's a budget response report that I plan to prepare this year for council. Yeah, just, we've done it in the past. We didn't do it last year because we were kind of focused on other things, but I think we'll do it this year. And there is actually a project in the CIP, $250,000 project to do a bit of an analysis to provide a little bit more substance to those estimates. And we're working on that. If we can bring that cost estimator on board and help us build out that budget response report, we might have more detail in that document. That likely drops end of May, early June, theoretically, maybe that second Tuesday in June, depending on how quickly we can compile the information. But that would be a tool, that would be a way for us to at least indicate to the community what we would be looking at from an order of magnitude standpoint.
Agreed. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the question.
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
So there's discussion about a firing range improvement there for about 5.4 million. And it's in conjunction with a $17 million grant from the U.S. Air Force. I guess-
Yeah, 17 total, $12 million grant. I think, yeah. $5
Gotcha.
million local expense, yeah.
And then I heard that it won't be decided on until next year. I was worried that it was going to be decided on in the next 2 months. And as a resident, I would have said, hold your pocketbook. Let's hold out for a year. We'll probably be back if, the Secretary of Defense and U.S. Air Force is interested. But I was curious. I know Torrance, I learned, has a firing range with a police officer detail of about 200. And then you had mentioned something, Nancy, about El Segundo's underground firing range.
El Segundo has an indoor range.
Indoor range.
Yeah, it's enclosed in glass, it's soundproof, it's very nice. I had occasion to go and I took a firing class over there.
Sounds like the top golf of firing ranges.
It's quite nice, and the building is fairly new, it looks like anywhere, it's been refurbished.
Yeah.
And somebody was mentioning that there may be a way that in the meantime, before we can start doing some real changes and improvements over here at our range, that perhaps there might be some way that our officers would be able to get some time at some other local police departments like Manhattan or El Segundo, where on certain days or times you could go over and practice there.
Yeah, no, it's a great thought. We had the same one. We actually reached out. I had Joe, our chief, reach out to the police chief in Torrance and ask him that very question. Hey,
Yeah.
our range is, not falling down, has kind of already fallen down.
Getting down.
It's in bad shape. What would it look like if we tried to partner with you? Could we use your facility? And while they made clear that they would be willing to probably let us come in on a short-term duration while we were under construction, they were hesitant for any kind of a permanent partnership. They had done some trial ballooning of that with another agency back in the day, and they found that you start to compromise your sort of security in your own structure when you have faces coming and going and needing to access a facility through your main doors. So not all of our officers who are shooting or training they might be in plain clothes. They may not be readily identifiable. So you got to figure out how do you key card in, how do you get out? So it creates challenges that seem like they should be easily overcome, but maybe a little more problematic than they are on their face. So that was my first question is, hey, can we partner with somebody who already has a pre-existing facility so we could save ourselves some money and maybe help them out on an operating basis? We'll keep asking those questions because I think they're good ones. But for now, nobody's really come forward and said, hey, come on, we can handle all of you. And, we'll gladly partner with you and have you in our station. Yeah. So we're still looking for that. And hence, and that's kind of the sentiment I heard from the feds too, right, was they've got need in the region. They're going all the way out to March to train, that's crazy to me. At March Air Force Base, which is Moreno Valley. It's way out there. So the fact that they're running from all of their local facilities in Seal Beach and, El Segundo and heading there, I thought, well, that's interesting. So there's a little clause, I guess, in this grant. If you can get one of the secretaries of the big defense departments to kind of identify local need, you can, I think, maybe overcome the 30% local match. But I wonder what that comes with, and then now we're kind of building a, military facility and maybe we're just shooting in their space. So I don't know. We got to sort it out. It's not going to be imminent. We're going to continue to work on this and see if we can identify an alternative local match.
If we had a payback plan with the Air Force or other federal and state and local agencies to use our facility, if we spent 5.4 million, what would be the payback number or number of years to get whatever investment rate of return and so forth? How much could you charge these other agencies and make it a viable investment where we actually got some ROI?
Yeah, it's a good question. We were kind of thinking about that a little bit. What would be the reasonable fee, right, for using the space? Typically, when we set those, we look to recover costs associated with our own expenses. in this case, right, in an ideal world, we'd recover our operating expenses as well as maybe some of our investment in this space. Still wouldn't necessarily provide us access to capital on the front side, so you'd have maybe some borrowing costs or something else potentially. So we haven't quite gotten there yet, but I think there's a limit on what we could conceivably charge. It's probably in the low six figures on an annual basis. So, it would take some time, I think, to realistically think we could claw that investment back. I'd love to see, always love when we're able to spend other agencies' money.
Yes. Just thinking, going from Torrance to Moreno Valley would be a $50 gas bill just for one person to go out there. I mean, so there's definitely a need there. Are there any other questions by commissioners on this or other topics?
Yes, I have a couple.
Go ahead.
In general, as far as the budget goes, the possibility existing of looking and building into some of these budgetary requests of audits and controls on one to ensure that that the money, wherever it goes and however it goes. And I'm not talking about the yearly general, let's just look at things.
Yeah,
I'm
the annual
talking
audit,
very
right.
specifically that if something is budgeted for, that we look at that one that has gone to a vendor who is authorized to do that, okay? As well as the idea of, did we get what we pay for? And then as well as, is it something we when it comes up again, is this what we need to do? On one point, audits and controls to ensure that is done. The second thing is the if you want to, an idea that when we do ask and pay for something, that it gets done in somewhat of a generally timely manner. There are things right now on the the CIP that have been sitting for 5 or 6 years, and I'm seeing that. And I understand that we can only do so much at any one time. I get that. But the people who are actually losing out is the community, because the things that they were looking for, the things that they were assured that they were going to get, that was going to benefit their community, for example, the ball field. 5 years, something sat before the backstop could even be approached until somebody said, hey, what's up with this? And, oh, yeah, we forgot about that. So I'm kind of looking at, do we have some type of sunset clause on this stuff to determine if you can get it done, instead of, because I see somewhat of an idea that when new things get piled on, everything gets pushed back.
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of looking at for both sides, of audits as well as a due date of some sort, or to revisit it at a 2-year period to determine, do we still even need it?
Still need it, yeah. No, good thoughts. I'll start with the first one. Yeah, we had, you might recall, you were around, I think, tracking this. We had the Moss Adams audit that we brought in, which was separate and apart from our annual kind of financial review, our ACFR and that. And they set out a series of to-dos. We got started on most of them. I think we're still kind of getting through that list. It occurs to me that we're probably ready for another refresh of that, maybe another bringing in, maybe not Moss Adams, but a Moss Adams type group to do a new audit. Now that Wendy, our finance director, has been on board for a while, she's tracking assets differently. We're doing new inventories of equipment and purchasing. So I think we're ready for another review in that regard, more of a policies, procedures, spot audit that we would typically have somebody help us with. We wouldn't do that internally. We'd have a third-party review, right?
But no, I'm concerned, well, I mean, you talk about audits. Audits are not necessarily we have to bring everybody in. It can be very general. But there is another question I'll ask as far as the budget type. Is there being able to, or being looked at the budget as far as a more of a timekeeping type of status or timekeeping type of programming to kind of bring it where you're not doing your payroll on cards that they do every 2 weeks?
Yeah, we're working on that.
Because I'm concerns me of people not showing up to work, they're not checking in, you don't know where some people are for a week or so, or whatever, overtime costs, whatever. And I think it would be a lot cheaper that if we invested in a timekeeping type of programming so that we can allocate find out where people are at.
Yeah, we're in the middle of that, actually implementing that. Our smaller departments have already, we call it ESS.
There's two departments that haven't.
Well, there's more than that now, but the big ones unfortunately do not. We have not yet implemented in police, we have not yet implemented in public works, and we have not yet implemented in fire. And that's where you're really going to see, I think, the true value of the program. It's quite a bit to bring it on board. Munis, our back of the house financial system, having a little trouble talking to ESS. I think we're working through that issue. I think we're getting close to implementation. But it's a pretty robust effort. When you start messing with payroll processes, you've got to get it right. You've got to have backups. You've got to understand it. So it's in motion, and it's a project that is current and something we desperately want to see done. I think there was a latter part of your question about the performance on capital projects. You know, we have 126 in the CIP right now. Some of that's a function of we had a significant pot of one-time monies that came through the ARPA support from the feds during COVID. We had some residual bond proceeds that we ultimately ended up implementing in a series of small capital projects. That grew our list, almost doubled our list in like a 3-year period. We're able to produce, we completed 24 capital projects in 2023, and we designed another 11. We spent $29 million in a single year. That's the most by far we've ever completed and spent in a single year. So we're delivering CIPs at the fastest pace we ever have in our history by a long shot. But even that doesn't feel quite fast enough, especially with that volume. I, this year, want to have a conversation about consolidating those resources, deciding, do we really, to your point, do we really need maybe all of the projects that are on the list? Maybe 20 of them can be redirected and grow funds for maybe the primary or priority issues. So we're going to be talking about that internally. So I appreciate the thought. I'm going to make a note on that too. And that's something that we've already been kicking around. It's just, we can only, with our current staffing, you can count on us to deliver about 15 to 20 a year and design about 15 to 20. That's about what we can handle with the existing resources. And you get too many resources and you accelerate that, and then you draw down all your capital funds. And now if you don't have funding in the pipeline to execute more, now you got too many staff sitting around. So you've got to be careful about not being over-resourced on the staffing side and under-resourced on the capital side. So it's a balancing act.
Thank you.
Alan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just had another question, just some further clarification. I believe that a strong, visible police presence helps deter crime, okay?
Yeah,
And I've
I
lived
agree with
here
you.
in this community since 1986, and you would see police officers on patrol as you travel through the city, around the clock. And over the years, that presence has declined to the point now that it's virtually non-existent. It's very rare to see a police officer's car on the street. You only see them when they're chasing the radio, they got a call and they're reporting somewhere, but you just don't see them, okay? And the traffic is completely out of control. There's no respect for traffic lights, there's no respect for stop signs, and then you tell us that it's funded adequately. Well, it's not, because otherwise you wouldn't have those problems with traffic and people would be obeying the traffic laws, but they're not. And one way to do that is to have a visible police presence. And I think it's a good idea to have a larger number of patrol officers on the street. And then what process do you use to determine the correct number of officers that you need? It's more than just a budget. We don't have enough money. You can reallocate resources from other departments to provide that, because that's really important.
Yep, appreciate that. Certainly, if we had more structural revenue, we would have the ability to deploy more officers. One of the focal points of late has been building out the traffic patrol unit. That has been an issue that's throughout the city, an area of concern. We added 2 officers specific to that function. We have a few officers in that unit, unfortunately, that are currently dealing with injuries and aren't able to be deployed. So we have, I think, resources for as many as, I want to say 7 to 9 dedicated traffic patrol officers, but I think we only have 4 deployed right now, maybe 5 with our sergeant. I can't remember exactly. So we're short there. Once we get those folks back on board, we'll be able to issue more citations. I can tell you statistically, we issued more citations on the traffic side. God, I just had this number in front of me. I want to say almost 2,200 sites in 2023 versus like 1,800 in 2022. So that grew. I think we're on pace to issue far more sites than that in 2024 when the time comes. So we're growing that resource. We're trying to grow awareness. We had I want to say 130, something like that, 130 community engagement events last year when you talk about awareness and presence. That's, different things. Public discussions on e-bike safety, right, which relates to traffic. Drive slow Redondo campaign, really just another traffic presentation. Coffee with the cop. I mean, all the other things we do really to try to raise awareness. it's our own residents that are either speeding or not following all of our traffic control requirements. So, we're constantly thinking about this. We're constantly working on it, deploying signboards, radar technology. I mean, we're using as much as we can to try to get a handle on it. And, but yeah, that sentiment is something we hear and something we're aware of.
I did a little run on the numbers for savings on labor and on mileage from here to Moreno Valley. If your capacity of your firing range has 1,000 people a month and they all make $50 an hour, which I doubt is probably the magic number, but it's probably 6 hours to go from here to Moreno Valley and do 2 hours of training.
It's fair.
And I would say that's about 1,000 people, $300 an hour or a day. What is that, $300,000? I'm trying to get my numbers correct, but it's in the millions.
Excuse me,
And
are you talking about Air Force personnel going down there or our personnel going down there?
Air Force personnel.
Air Force can go to Edwards, and not everybody I'll put it to you this way, not everybody at LA Air Station is combat ready. The only people who actually shoot, as a 15 or 13-year Air Force person, the only generally people who are combat ready down there are the security police, and those are civilians. I'm not trying to dispute the numbers. I'm just saying is that I understand what they're doing.
What do you think the throughput of the Air Force that would actually use the firing range per month?
Yeah, I think it's dozens of personnel, not thousands.
Not 1,000.
By far. And Edwards,
Okay.
is, again, being stationed at Edwards myself.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. So I'm saying is that I think the fortunate side for us, if everybody approved that facility, is that the federal government's willing to give us the money. That's the upside.
That is good.
Okay. The thing I would go with that is that they're probably not going to be using it as much as they claim they would, which is better for us.
Yeah, which would
If we decide to do that. Okay. What I'm saying though is that they may say they're going to Moreno, but the number of people who actually in the Air Force, okay, that fire a weapon or actually even have a weapon, okay, are very minimal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
I have
sense.
military police there.
Okay.
Okay. So just kind of understand how that works, but there is an upside to that, if you will. But we'll also have the same issues that you would say, that say we rent it out,
Yeah.
of those same issues that you claim that Torrance indicates.
Yeah, we would do with them
We would have
too.
the same thing.
The only advantage is they're not traipsing through a police station. It's just a single
But
structure.
they're-
Our park services would be affected by
Right,
that.
and the other thing we look at is the majority of the agencies in this area have their own. Manhattan has seven lanes, I think Torrance is 7, LAX just did 13 million on their indoor site. Okay,
I would just
has theirs.
add, it isn't Air Force, it's Space Force.
no, they said Air Force came, not the Space Force.
But it was Space Force that
The
came.
Space Force would have to be.
They were at
okay, so
yeah. So it's
But
Space
even
Force.
Space Force-
Wait, hold on. I just want to make sure that we're speaking on what's actually happened. So like Space Force that came, Space Force that has the 17 million, and it's Space Force and one of the things that I don't want to speak too far out of term, but our congressman is working on is making sure that if we go with them, can we use other agency money? Is there not a conflict? So that's one of the things that's holding, because we may be able to come up with that other 5 million.
Right.
So
many
I see
people
the
in
point.
Sport?
I see the point that you're trying to make is showing the ROI, right? I don't want to get caught in
always.
saying who's deficient and who's not working.
Right.
I think the point that you were more trying to make is say, hey, if it costs this much, and you're trying to come up with a number, right? Because you were like low
How
six
much would you
figures.
save? How much could
would you-
reasonably
yes.
expect for
He
them
was
to
building
pay?
the business
Yeah.
case for you.
Yeah,
I think
no, it's
that
a
was
good
more
thought.
the point.
It's
I
got to be in
understand
the
what-
millions somewhere
Yeah.
per year.
So.
Yeah, it's in there, and it was a couple of, they cited a few other agencies locally, federal agencies that would likely be interested in training at our facility if we did partner in a grant. So I think there is an ability to offset certainly our ongoing expenses and maybe even a little bit of our capital investment if we were to make it. But I think the point you were making is where's that inflection point where you can maybe make the capital investment knowing you'd have it paid back?
Yeah.
That one feels a little bit more nebulous to me, just being conservative, financially. So I'm kind of hopeful we could maybe identify another grant source that would cover our obligation there. But that's the problem is when you talk about $5 million, and you think about all the other facility needs we have, $5 million would go a long way to improving our records lobby and improving, our detectives bureau and improving our Fire Station 1 living corridors or our bathrooms.
Our
or
public
there's-
works infrastructure by the
Yeah,
fire
I mean, our
lanes,
yard
yes.
space. I mean, $5 million could go a long ways.
Yep.
In a lot of different departments. So that's where it gets hard to look at that and go, okay, well, let's write a check for 5 million when we got a lot of 5 millions we need to write a check for.
Like an overpass on Ringe and Artesia or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with 5 million.
Yeah, five is that's a real number. That's a number that we can, we get excited when we can make a couple $100,000 of investments in the station, or here at Civic Center. So, that's why, we're careful about that kind of a expense on a capital basis.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions for the city manager?
Any other thoughts? Anything you'd like to
Commissioner
think about?
Hi there. Okay, so now the Fire Station 1, is that the small one over by Catalina?
Yeah, the one on Broadway. Yeah,
And
Broadway
that's
and
the one
Pearl.
in the worst condition, you're saying?
Yeah, generally Fire Station 2 is in better shape. Yeah, I mean, we've got a few projects at Station 1. The windows, if you look at the north side of the building, the windows are pretty old. We're ordering windows and going to be improving that facade. You go into the facility, the garage quarters and, where our equipment is housed and things, it's in pretty good shape. The roll-up door, structurally, that's all in good shape. The living quarters are tired. They could use certainly some TLC. The bathrooms in the station could use some upgrading from a staff livability standpoint, most definitely. Station 2 is in a little bit better shape in that regard, but both facilities could use those kinds of improvements, and they wouldn't be that expensive,
What do you think it would cost roughly for Station 1?
We have some data out there. There's probably more reports I could draw from. I'd hate to put a number on it, but I think if we spent probably 7 figures on each of the facilities, we could really make it far more attractive for our folks in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking too, what if we were to have some fundraising events put on by the city, by the fire department, by the police department, to get the public, the residents to come and then pay to do things like, 10K runs or various things they could put on, and then have the money go to those projects or to that little fire station.
Calendars.
Maybe we get a GoFundMe page going.
There you go.
Yeah, I know, it's a good thought. I mean, if there's more feeling and sentiment in the community to support that kind of a capital expense, that's when you start having conversations about maybe issuing a bond. If the community really wants to see us invest in these spaces, you can have start having that order of magnitude discussion about whether or not we can float not a lease revenue bond like we do to administratively to pay off, like the pension unfunded accrued liability, but actually a general obligation bond where the voters would vote on it and decide, do you want to assess ourselves to actually make that kind of investment? But we haven't had a bond conversation in a while in that respect.
I know that the residents are very, very fond of our fire department and our firemen, and tomorrow night's city council meeting is going to have a big discussion about that, LA County versus local. And I don't know, you think a lot of people would want to get involved possibly and support something like this, since they do want our guys to
Yeah, I think it's a
stay and
great
have a
point.
good life.
It'd be
yeah.
interesting to see if that point's made tomorrow night. There is definitely facility infrastructure need in our community, and there are certainly priorities and what we can and can't afford, and then our residents will have feelings about what we should and shouldn't afford in that respect too. So I'm curious about the community's feeling on a general obligation bond. I can tell you that. I know the school districts deployed not one, but a couple. They're kicking around the idea of another one as well. So, we'll see.
Right.
I think the report that was done by the LA County Fire Department on the possible acquisition does delineate the amount of repairs that they view.
Yeah.
Okay, which may not necessarily be actually, but I think it's like 300,000 for Fire Station 1, and I think it's another 400 for the other station.
Yeah, and that's I think, as I understood that, to make them compatible and meet the basic expectations of the
Well,
county's
I mean,
operation.
They put that number out. I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of that was for structural, but there was quite a bit of
Yeah,
structural.
it was kind of.
Because it included other stuff that was probably more like uniforms, boots and
I
things like
think
that.
it is uniformity. Yeah, I think if you took that and said, okay, well, now what sort of TLC would we want to put in this space? Do we want to replace the carpet? Do we want to
Like a
redo the
roof.
tile in the bathrooms, right? Do we want to replace the partitions? And if you just start going through and kind of looking at it, a home remodel, I think you could see that number grow pretty quickly certainly in terms of want, in that sense. So, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't take it's not going to take hundreds of millions of dollars. It would just take, I think, tens of millions of dollars for us to make a significant difference in our civic infrastructure.
I have a question. If you're going to spend $17 million on a shooting range, it doesn't matter where the money comes from because this is taxpayers' money. Okay, wouldn't it be better to appropriate those resources? You could build a whole new police department with a shooting range built into it for that kind of money.
You
Wouldn't that
don't
make
get the
more
$12
sense?
million
No, I think
scholarship.
it's a good thought. I suspect a brand new police station would be
Yeah.
probably more like $100 million.
Oh, wow.
If not more. Yeah, it was $60 million in, about 15 years ago.
And we have to look at the source. It's the grant. The grant is specifically, so.
There you go, 160 million for LAX's police station. Wow. So, it's not, 17 million would be unfortunately,
That would be the
I wish
restroom.
it weren't, but it
That'd
would
be
be
the
kind of a drop
restrooms.
in the bucket.
My crazy question of the evening is, would there be something beyond a spike strip we could use, given the incident we had across the street? I remember there was something in Florida where they had that front activated clamping system. What is that called?
Oh, it was like teeth that come up?
Like a gator or something.
Gator, something like that. And it would be hard to have that particular patrol unit engaged 24 hours a day. You'd probably have to have a few of them in the beach cities, and, there'd have to be a lot of, mutual aid contracts. But gosh darn, that was a horrific crash, and, I just wish we could have stopped it from happening. But if, that only costs $50,000 or $100,000 a unit, I would suggest
You
maybe.
refer to
that
the
we-
one that just occurred last week?
Yes, yeah.
Well, yeah, we weren't even, as far as I know, we weren't even chasing that individual. She just crashed.
So the police weren't even.
I don't think the police were even on scene. I
Not
think
even aware?
Yeah, she was just flying down Pacific Coast Highway, hit Diamond and caught a little bit of air and crashed, yeah.
Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one. Do we have any projects or things on the future agenda that we could take money from or move it over toward these really urgent needs like the fire station one?
We'll be looking at that in the budget to see if we can kind of redeploy or reallocate those existing funds, absolutely, and make sure they're going to sort of priority infrastructure needs. There's not, a lot of those extra kind of fun projects are being paid for by other restricted sources, our open space, our Quimby Fund, our Open Space Acquisition Fund, or our Recreation Facilities Repair Account, or it might be Metro grants that were for street improvements or right-of-way activities. So you can't take those and put them into a police or fire station or city hall. So
Yeah, I mean, we have so many art projects, and I know they have special grants they're using.
they're using the John Parsons Public Art
Strictly
Funds.
that type of-
Yeah.
okay.
So that has got to stay in the arts area. Yeah.
Thank you.
But no, good thoughts. Appreciate all the comments tonight. Really do.
And how is the quality of life and homeless service unit? Are they getting all the budget they're asking for? Are we going to ameliorate anything in that area?
We've been pretty successful identifying grants.
Good.
We just got another $1.3 million from
Nice.
HealthNet, which was
Nice.
a private organization. They're going to help us build out the next phase of the pallet shelter and
Awesome.
help us with some of our mental health response efforts. So thus far, we're really leaning heavy on the grant side of the equation there. We have invested structurally in some general fund positions that are servicing that program, but they've had good efficacy and value for us.
City Manager Wasansky, I would say that if there was a grant for the dispatch, I want to keep that dispatch unit in Redondo Beach forever, because the 2-minute response from the police and the local fire department is something I treasure as a resident and I'm willing to pay for. In county, I don't know. I was up in the mountains one time and there was a motorcycle that was doing a run through the dry brush while I was hiking up in the hills, and this guy walking a dog was trying to stop him. and they got into a fight, and I was trying to call the police. Please hold, please hold, please hold. And so I just hope that there's enough in the budget to keep the dispatch and our local fire and police within the city. Thank you.
Understand the thought, yeah.
It's actually National Dispatchers Week,
Good.
starting from Sunday through actually next Sunday is National Dispatchers Week.
That's cool. Yeah, go Redondo Dispatch. Are there any other questions?
Just a comment. Thank you for your
Yeah.
insight. Thank you for your access to information. Like it's Hillary Clinton level, and I love it. Keep up the good work. I'm still going to give you crap, but I do enjoy you as our city manager.
Well, I appreciate being here. Thank you all. And listen, thank you for what you do. I mean, you can't do this without volunteers like yourself, so.
Nancy?
I just had one more question. As far as Beach City's health district goes and that big development and all that, I mean, are we committed to any amount of money that we're particularly going to have to put into this thing or?
Oh, no, we're not.
at this
There's
stage?
no resource there. I believe their next project is the build out of their Alcove facility.
Yeah.
That's state grant funded from what I understand. And they're pursuing other capital resources, I think, for the other
great.
phases. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Alan Gill, any other questions? All good, thank you.
Well, thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
So
Enjoy the rest of the
much.
meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, bye, thank
Catch you
you.
next time.
All right, let's talk about recent fire events. You have Captain Regan?
He's a chief.
Is he chief?
It's all good, Captain Chief.
That's what my grandfather got up to in the Detroit Fire Department. He retired at captain, but anyway, congratulations, chief.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see everyone again. I got to be a little bit short today. I have a prior engagement, so I'm going to be a little bit quicker. But as far as significant events for Redondo Fire since the last time I've seen you, it's only been a few weeks. Probably the thing most significant, not necessarily call volume, but a really good thing that happened to our agency. We currently have 5 members that are firefighter paramedics that are on their probationary year. So they just completed their 6-month engine test. Pretty difficult test. You've probably seen them out there pulling hose and practicing for it. Pretty invasive test, but all 5 members did really good. They passed the test. They'll continue to remain employed with us. So that's a big accomplishment. That's a good reflection on, our new training officer and the training they're getting from the captains and the crews. So I know being a captain for a long time, when you have a probationary employee, like most of your focus goes to that employee. So it's good to see how good everyone did. So that was really good to see. So that was a pretty significant thing for us. Another big thing is we had about 300 applicants for the firefighter EMT position. So we sent members to paramedic school. They just completed their paramedic training. They came back. All 3 members they finished their internships. They successfully completed that. Now they have to do a national registry test to become, California paramedics and then get their Los Angeles County accreditation. But big accomplishment for those members too, to get through paramedic school. So now we're looking at, with the impending promotion of those members to the paramedic rank, 3 new hires as firefighters. So when you have a firefighter EMT position, more people are qualified to apply for that position, as opposed to paramedic school. When you have to be a medic, we only get 15 to 30 applicants generally right now for a firefighter paramedic position. We closed the application period after 3 days because we had somewhere between 200 and 300 applicants. So we just got done. We didn't interview all 300, but we interviewed about 70 people. They came in we created a shorter list of the most highly qualified candidates. Came in for chief's interviews. I can say that we had a really good group of people. It's too bad we can't hire all of them. But Chief Butler will be doing final interviews himself and have a decision to make on 3 new members probably he'll probably make that decision within 30 days. And, they'll go through backgrounds and do that. So that'll help us get fully staffed. It's a good time in the department when you start getting that, you get new members. So yeah, so that's a couple really big things that were going on in our agency. I did get some requests, obviously, from last meeting on a lot of things that you guys were looking for, whether what's an emergency, what's not, chief complaints, all that stuff. Mr. Carmichael was nice enough to send me an email with the request. Unfortunately, I just don't have the time and hours to be able to get all that information in a short period of time. It's on the radar. Talk to my EMS chief. I'm going to bring more of it up to him. As we get our nurse educator on board, we have a lot of projects going on. I'd expect to get more of that information to you guys at a later date. But it wasn't something that I would be able, the stuff that was asked was more, it was so detailed, it was more into the range of like what Citygate was paid to do, and they hired people to do that kind of an in-depth study. Right now, my job as the fire marshal, we have a lot on our plate. We're working currently for the 4th of July fireworks show is coming up. So we're working with the environmental company to try to get our permits on in line for that. Obviously, the beach life coming up, police and fire are very highly involved in that. One thing we're going to do in a couple weeks, right before that event, we're going to do a large MCI drill, a mass casualty incident drill. The old police chief is helping us out. We're going to have many volunteers. The night they set up everything for the Beach Life Festival, I'm not going to say what the actual incident is so that people don't know, but we'll have 20 to 30 volunteers in there. We're going to do a nice mass casualty incident practice run in case something happens. So a lot of work goes into that Beach Life event too. Incident action plans. We've had meetings every other week with police representatives and the Beach Life personnel. So that's a major topic for us right now. Baseline about call volume, stuff we have going on. So we've run about approximately 2,200 total emergency responses to the year so far. With 3.5 months, or we're in our 4th month of the year. Mutual aid, somebody asked about how many mutual aid responses we had. So far this year, we've received mutual aid 42 times. 20 of those 42 times, that unit was canceled en route. So an example of that, we have medical aid up north. Both of our paramedic rescues or squads are already on another call. They'll call Manhattan Beach in or whoever else is the local. Usually Manhattan Beach is the most common resource. By the time they come, they get en route. Rescue 1 or Squad 6-1 will become available. Hey, we'll take the call. It's in our city. So out of the 42 times, 20 times they were canceled en route. On the other end, we have given mutual aid 11 times and we were canceled en route 5 times. So that was just what you guys have asked for. So if you do the math on how many times we have called for mutual aid, the data I got was in this period of time, we're in April, we've called for it 42 times. 20 times they were canceled en route. Significant incidents. Obviously, we spoke a little bit about the traffic accident. Our paramedics responded to that. Big incident. There was no transportation on that one, but that was a major incident in the city. Our Harbor Patrol worked with LA County lifeguards for a small diesel fuel spill into the ocean. They worked together. They made all the proper notifications through health. LA County Health, through the hazmat teams and fishing games. So that was another unique but challenging call for our city. And that's basically what I got. Like I said, I'll try to gather more information for you guys at a later date. But yeah, that's it. We didn't have any big fires since I seen you last, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. Cool. If you guys don't have any questions?
Thank you, sir.
You have something, I see. Yeah.
Okay. When do you think they're going to get into that paramedic fee that's been proposed?
I don't know,
It's still up for grabs in the future.
They're still working on it and coming up with the parameters and stuff like that. It'll be a topic through the city.
Maybe we should stand moot on that, and maybe it won't resurface anytime soon. Any other questions?
I just have one comment. With respect to the stats that we're looking for, I know you're task oriented because that's just your role. Don't feel like you have to do it like right away.
Yeah.
Our thinking was, 1, just look at the scope and then tell us what we can have. And then 2, give us an ETA on when we can have it. So if that helps, think about it.
We're thinking about it. We have it in our mind. It's just, it'll take some time to figure
Which is fine. I just want to let you know,
yeah, and I appreciate anything you guys send me via email to give me time to actually process it and see what I can get to you.
Sweet, thanks.
All right.
Any other
See you
questions?
guys next time.
No? Okay.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Bye-bye, Commissioner positions. Yes.
No, I sent him an email. I'm all Captain, and he came back with a signature and it said Chief. I was like,
Always be kind. Thank you, Commissioner Carmichael.
Sure thing.
Let's go to the crime recap. J3, Officer Lostrom. Hello there.
In addition to what you see in your agenda, obviously I'd like to speak about the big story of that fatal collision we had across the way there. There's a bunch of stuff still under investigation. Obviously, we investigate a portion that occurs in Redondo Beach, which is related to the fatal collision, as per the press release that's been sent out by us. And then there's obviously alleged connection between an incident regarding children being ejected by some means or another out of the car on the freeway in the area of the 405 and Howard Hughes, Culver City area. And then additionally, a homicide investigation in Woodland Hills being investigated by LAPD. And we've been contacted by both agencies involved, and obviously with everything still being under investigation. But as far as here goes, single car collision, no other parties involved besides the vehicle and individual in question. Going to our community policing report. Your Redondo Beach Police Department Baker to Vegas team competed in Baker to Vegas, a nationally known law enforcement charity race that's 120 miles long, 20 legs. I personally ran a leg myself, and we placed 5th in our division this year, and we look forward to an even, what?
What time did you run at?
I believe what time did I run?
Yes.
About 10:45 a.m.
Oh, okay. Did it run all night too?
All day and all night.
Oh, wow.
Our time, I believe, was one of the faster times we've ever done.
Good job.
Our division was a little smaller though, and the top 3 in our division are extremely competitive. We look forward, we've identified some talent going forward. So we're looking forward to an even better team next year. And thankfully there were brave officers willing to run at 10:45 a.m. in the middle of a dust storm and still put on a pretty stellar Black Mamba-esque performance.
And still shine your boots after the 6 miles?
Yeah. We did a career day at Jane Addams Middle School in Lawndale on March 26th, and I understand that that's not in the city of Redondo Beach, but there is nexus because the youth in Lawndale patronize Redondo Beach regularly. We want to develop a good relationship with them and not exclude it as a recruiting pool for potential teens and policing involvement, cadet hires that lead to long-term careers with still a strong nexus to Redondo. We conducted an e-bike safety seminar on April 5th at the RUHS auditorium. On Thursday, it was a Thursday, kind of somewhat after school evening hours. Some members of our community services unit attended a car seat technician training course, that would be child passenger safety technician rather, last week, which concluded with a community event. Of the 30 appointments, we filled about 18, and we had 18 car seats come in, only one of which was properly installed on every level.
Wow.
So really awesome service we provided there to the community. A lot of residents came through,
Yeah.
expecting parents, et cetera. There was a planned Redondo PD versus Redondo High School softball game. It did get rained out this weekend. It seems to keep raining on people's days off. Somewhat weird with beautiful sunny days during everyone's normal work days. But we look forward to rescheduling that sometime in May, hopefully. Upcoming events, we're doing a run, hide, fight training for additional Northrop Grumman employees on April 18th. We have the Beach Life Festival, Commissioner Kleinbaum, coming up May 3rd to 5th. Maybe we could just go together. Citizens Academy Class 49, aptly named the 49ers.
Oh, Lordy.
Is graduating May 24th. Would love to have you guys come to a graduation, see what it's about. Maybe
What's the date again?
get you in the next class.
What's that date again?
That is May 24th, 7 p.m. right here in this building, in this room, in fact. Friday, May 24th, 2024. We'll be at Washington Elementary's end of the year party again on May 31st. And Team Redondo Beach PD will be carrying the Special Olympics torch on June 3rd through the city as it makes its way to Cal State Long Beach for the Special Olympics, Southern California Special Olympic Games. There is a donation link for Team Redondo Beach. All of the funds go to the Special Olympics. Can't really beat that cause. So I'm looking at you guys when I send you an email this week. Wink, wink. Volunteers in policing, another 398 hours this month for a total of 985 on the year through March. Additionally, one of our retired sergeants conducted some training for our VIPs about checking gas station card readers. So another service being added to the VIP list will be regular checks of our gas stations for skimmers on gas station pumps and ATMs, et cetera. Any other additional questions regarding J3?
How about commercial trucking, traffic enforcement training? Did that make its way through the discussions or anything?
There's still a lot being planned and discussed. And what action is going to be taken. I know that generally speaking, our traffic officers are often ambitious and pursue training. And with this topic coming up as of late, they'll probably look to identify some advanced training to get everybody certified up in the next year or two.
Cool.
Obviously to take the classes as they come and try not to deplete our whole unit at once.
Yeah,
For one specific week, hopefully spread it out over some time.
yeah,
Does that
makes
feel?
sense.
Any other?
Nope. Okay.
Okay,
Just on this subject or in general?
on J3. That would be recent crime, community policing and volunteers.
Concerning community engagement board,
Yes.
can you explain that, please?
The Community Engagement Board was an initiative brought forward, I want to say 2017 or 2018. Board of civilians that meet regularly and discuss 3 topics, and I believe the topics were humanizing the badge, trust and transparency in law enforcement.
Right, okay. And do we have access to any of the minutes of any of that conversations or anything else with the input that they have with the department? Or who they are, actually?
There's information on the website. It kind of talks about who they are and who to contact for an inquiry. I know that it's being looked at right now because the involvement became somewhat lower in more recent times.
Yeah.
So it's definitely being looked at, but future action is TBD, whether it will sunset or continue and expand is all being looked at right now.
Yeah.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
What is the senior safety seminar on March 26th at BCHD?
Beach Cities Health District, I think it was the Chamber of Commerce actually that they held a little meeting there at Beach Cities and invited the residents there to come, and they had me give a brief presentation on senior safety, more so as it pertains to like fraud and scams, scam type crime and fraud related crime as it pertains to seniors.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, so we're closed with J3. Let's start with Commissioner Escontrias. Any items and referrals to staff?
No.
Commissioner Kleinbaum?
Whatever happened to there's a homeless hotel on PCH, but they never finished the project? Does anyone know whatever happened to that? And does that need to be investigated?
Can I answer?
They're wrapping up.
They're wrapping up, yeah.
There's a motel that
They're going to be doing ribbon
purchased.
cutting like this month or next.
No, it's not a homeless hotel. It's
Well,
No, it's a hotel was purchased to make apartments for homeless people, okay? And then it seemed like they never finished the project, and it's been
No,
years.
it's almost done now.
yeah, it's almost
Almost done.
done.
Are you
It's
getting
almost
out
done.
these days, Commissioner?
Maybe not.
I was gonna say, I drive, every time I drive back to the police department annex, I drive down your street.
Yeah.
So there's no way you ain't seeing police cars. Because I'm crossing it at least twice a day.
He's like, you should at least see one.
Well, I kind of do it on purpose. Hoping to run into you.
Honk when you go by.
I think a police officer stopped by my house the night somebody was complaining about lack of police presence and looked me over. And so it was well received. And I remember Lieutenant Salcedo and I had a good giggle about that.
But yeah, that's
My
moving,
intention is
that's moving forward.
to, obviously, the city manager had a time-sensitive matter for this meeting. My intention is to, I gave you packets.
Yes.
That was information provided by John Persland, who spoke,
Yes.
a resident who spoke at the last meeting. That will be in the agenda. It's just substantial and a lot of reading. So I just wanted to, he was gonna, he brought him to the station and I figured I would just deliver him. And then that will be an agenda item, its own discussion item in the May agenda.
Okay.
And that will be included in said agenda, all that documentation.
Cool. I
There has
guess.
been some movement in that.
Yeah, I understand. Right after we met, the
City Council.
Public Works Commission met, and they had a big discussion about it. And there's been some
As did City Council.
requests for contact, because we've been not having success with communication with Torrance, so there's been some more attempts at communication with Torrance and so on and so forth.
Well, they've been encouraged to contact Torrance PD on the Torrance side of the traffic issue to be able to possibly bring them in to kind of take care of their side before they even get into.
Right, right.
And the Torrance police have been very receptive to that traffic.
Oh, that's good.
It's revenue.
That's good. Hopefully they get more than 1 minute if they go to a Public Works or Public Safety Commission meeting in Torrance to talk. Commissioner Skiba, do you have any feedback, referrals?
No, I don't think so this time.
I think we've got a whale of a meeting in May, so I think I'll keep quiet and just read that big packet behind me. Commissioner Carmichael?
I just had one question. Did we get a ruling, if you will, on our subcommittee
Which one?
for the stats from the police, from the fire department?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We never heard back from you, Officer Lostrom, on getting a kind of a legal way forward or permitted way forward on creating a subcommittee on stats in the fire department.
That was an oversight by me. I will find out by next meeting and I'll let you know how it works exactly. And so you guys can get up and running.
You do a very darn good job, Officer Lostrom, and we
It's a
enjoy
busy month.
having
It's a
you.
busy month.
Yeah.
Lots
Well-
of stuff and things.
Well, without any final comments?
I have just one question. When you do the run, hide, fight, are you omitting the video or are you going to use the video in the future? Because that's a scary video. The guy in the mall walking around with the canister.
Did I show the LA County Sheriff's Department video at the one you attended at the
Well, the one I
performing?
went at performing, you didn't show any video. But
Right, I omitted it from that because it was a much larger forum of people. And it is, I mean, it's fake violence, but it's a dramatization of an
Kind of
active
grabs
shooter.
you though. I think it's a good thing, video.
Yeah, just, that was the first time doing it for the general public. So although I provided it as a resource for them to watch kind of on their own, I didn't really know what to expect from the audience. If there was young teenagers, I didn't want to.
Oh, there were.
In a
okay.
more, like, for example, I've done it for Northrop Grumman several times where I know that you have to be an adult and a pretty squared away adult to have a full-time job there. They do background checks and stuff. And
Okay,
I've done it for a church and I usually will give them a heads up.
yeah.
Any smaller organization, I've given a heads up about kind of the more sensitive nature of those videos, and I do show them. When I did that kind of open to the public one, I just elected not to show that one. Just being a little more conservative minded
Yeah.
in that sense. I want people to come, so I don't want to scare the heck out of them. So, and you saw the it takes a lot of effort on my part to bring some levity to the morbidity of that topic.
I know. It was very good, by the way.
Well, thank you.
It's good to have awareness on things like
very
that. And without any further comments, I call this meeting adjourned at 8:17.